Hey there. I'm editing. I'm going to get ready to upload part 1 of chapter 9, Daniel chapter 9. I'm just going to warn you, my ADD is full-blown terrible right now. And even Jewel texted me and said, wow, it's funny, your ADD has been really bad lately. And I think there's Easter candy in my house. And it's just been a stressful couple of weeks, and I think I've been eating sugar, and I have not had sugar in a long time. I've been on this diet where I've not been snacking, and it's making my mind kind of. So I apologize because I'll start down one rabbit trail and follow one other, and then it's been really bad the last couple days. But I think the Spirit is hovering over it. So I actually it was an hour and a half, and I cut it short. Because I wanted to talk about the background a little bit, about the diaspora, why they're in Babylon, and some things related to that. But one thing I want to say, someone asked me, why do you think that so many prophetic channels end up being law? What? I mean, even Chuck Missler. Why did Chuck Missler end up being Galatian? A lot of these guys end up being more legalistic as they go on. And I said, well, there's two ways to look at the prophetic word. Either you see it as God's faithfulness to his promises on behalf of his people, or you see it as God bringing in his judgment against his enemies, because it's both. Or you see it as a mix of both. But the prophetic word is not primarily God bringing in the judgment against his enemies. It is his faithfulness to his promises on behalf of his people, who are the heirs. It's about a kingdom that was prepared from the foundation of the world for the heirs who would believe and would receive it as a free gift. You can't work for it. You can't earn it. You can't be qualified for it by your own righteousness. It is entirely a kind intention of the Father's heart to give it to Christ and those that he will receive it with him willingly, And it is nothing but a free gift from the goodness of our Father's heart. But there are people who will not receive it for whatever reason, and eventually there's a crisis, because judgment means crisis, or in the Greek it's crisis. There's a crisis because eventually God's got to bring that kingdom in. He's got to fulfill his word, and he has held off in his long suffering because he knows that on the one hand his kind intention is to bring in this everlasting kingdom and satisfy the thirst that he's put in us all. We are all longing for that day. Even the people who are not saved are created with eternity in their heart to long for things that can only be fulfilled in the kingdom. Jesus Christ is the desire of the nations. Eventually he's got to bring it in, but when he does, the reason he's been long suffering is because that will bring a judgment. And he has to, when he comes, this world is going to oppose him. If they would surrender their arms and lay down their weapons and believe, he wouldn't have to judge them. But the Antichrist and his armies literally come to wage war against the Lamb. They're going to have nuclear weapons pointed at the Lamb and his armies when they come down. When we come down. It's silly, but it's true. So they oppose to the uttermost this kingdom. And for that reason, in God's long suffering, he has waited because of the cataclysm that will result. And, however, the focus of the kingdom is good news. And the church says, and the Spirit says, and the bride says, come and drink freely of the water of life. That's the message we have. And even when we talk about the prophetic word, that's how it should be. And the reason the reason all the prophecy channels, so-called, are works is because that is not their view of the prophetic word. Their view of the prophetic word is that it's God's judgment against his enemies. And when you have that kind of view, when you judge others, you end up judging yourself. If you put everybody under the law, you're going to put yourself under the law. So even the grace ones end up getting confused. When they read the prophetic message, they lose sight of the grace and the promises. They don't put it in the light of, this is God fulfilling the covenants he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In fact, they deny it. What we're seeing now is that people are denying the new covenant, denying the literal throne, and yet they want to believe in a rapture. Because they want to hold on to the idea that God is judging the nations, but they don't have any clue that the only reason he's doing that is because he is fulfilling the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and especially to Abraham's seed, Christ, to give him the land and the kingdom and the nations as his inheritance and all of that. It's his faithfulness to his promises. So we have to make a deliberate choice to stand in the gospel when we study prophecy, and 9 out of 10 don't. It's like they believe the gospel and then they go study prophecy, and for them it's all law, and eventually it taints their view of the Christian life. And I think, like Chuck Missler started grace and ended law. I believe he's a believer, but he was Galatianized, and many of them are like that, because it's very difficult to preach law without putting yourself under it, So that is where that stands, and that's why I'm going to take my time with this and be very careful about it, because I want to make sure it's just saturated with as much grace as possible, because people have PTSD from the prophetic message. Literally, people have trauma from the way it's been handled. It's terrible. It's been used to beat the saints. All right, take care.